What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so want to do one last video talking about Major League Baseball and Cooperstown. And those of you who've been subscribed to this channel for a little bit might remember when I started talking about Dick Allen. I think it was back in 2019, and I strongly feel that he should be in the Hall of Fame. I've read a lot about Dick Allen. His personality, personal issues he had to go through on the field, off the field, with teammates. Um, how he wasn't as appreciated as he should have been, as celebrated as he should have been. How he was a little bit before his time in a lot of ways, and how you have to reevaluate his career and put his career in the context of the era that he played in. Now, a cruel fate awaited Dick Allen after his career. Now, he played from, I believe, 1963 to 1977, but the last few years of his career were marred with injury. His career was just destroyed by injury. I believe he missed something to the effect of 300 something games due to injury. If it wasn't for that, he would have definitely hit well over 400 home runs. Well over 400 home runs. Possibly 500, which considering the era that he played in would have been phenomenal. It'd probably been the equivalent of someone hitting almost 700 home runs now. Um, but when he was on the ballot, he never got more than 18% of the vote, and then he dropped off. And he's one of those guys that you never hear them talk about. They always talk about Willie Stargell and Reggie Jackson and those guys, but you never hear them talk about Dick Allen. Um, he's one of those names that I saw when I was growing up as a kid, and I just assumed that he was sort of like in the category of someone like Dave Kingman or someone like you know Rob Deere or something. I always assumed that he was sort of in that character, in that category, I should say, like a guy that could hit for power but really didn't do much else. Can hit a home run, but other than that, he was a strikeout machine. I didn't look at his numbers. Then I started reading about him, and I realized that he was suffering from a lot of the same issues that Barry Bonds was suffering from, and that is this: Dick Allen was a Northern boy. By that I mean he grew up in the North, if not mistaken. But when he started playing Major League Baseball, when he was playing in the farm system, he started off in Arkansas. And Arkansas in the early 1960s was a hotbed for, as we know, racism. He wasn't used to that. Supposedly, when he would play games on that level in the minors, fans would call him nigger, obviously. Let's be honest, we know what time it was back then. Fans would spit on him. Fans would throw objects at him. But he was expected to behave as a professional, a good boy. All right. Also, they would not refer to him as Dick Allen. They would call him Richie Allen. I don't know whether there's some sort of inferior phallic, uh, mentality behind that. I don't know why that is, but they will only refer to him as Richie Allen. It's funny because he was supposed to be a good boy, but Ted Williams was spitting on fans, including Red Sox fans, and that wasn't right. But he's still this great all-time player. But just different expectations for the same action, or not the same actions, but one person is retaliating, but it's called justified. If the other person did it, he's a disgrace. But he had to keep dealing with that. Even when he went to Philly, obviously, when he went to Philly, he had to still deal with that type of shit. And he was outspoken about it. And he was outspoken in the press about it. And Major League Baseball and sports wasn't used to that, seeing that from a black man. They weren't used to seeing a strong black man stand up and complain about shit. They were used to, and I'm not disrespecting Jackie Robinson because I understand the circumstances involved and why he had to do what he had to do. But America was used to the Jackie Robinsons turning the other cheek. Well, this was 15 going on 20 years later. Black men were no longer doing that. But one of the first to do it was, probably the first to do it, was Dick Allen, who they refused to call Dick Allen. The Philadelphia media, the press was horrible toward him. Horrible. Viciously racist toward him. They expected him to just take that abuse. He also had a career moonlighting as a professional singer. He wanted to be in show business. It didn't work out the way he wanted to. The media was very relentless in criticizing his singing. So he had a very tumultuous time in Philly. As a matter of fact, he got into a fight, I believe it was in Philly, with a fellow teammate named Frank Thomas. Not the Frank Thomas that we know of, that played primarily with the with the White Sox, but a different, earlier Frank Thomas. Then he played in the other ball clubs. Trying to remember the teams. I know he played with the Cardinals for a stretch, but he had his greatest season with the Chicago White Sox. He won the MVP award with the White Sox. He hit 40 home runs back then. When hitting 40 home runs in that era was almost like hitting like 55 or more home runs today. I mean, that was a lot of home runs back in that era when there was very low offensive production. And you know, when he was healthy, he was an annual All Star. But injuries took a toll on him. A lot of it had to do with the fact that what reading about Dick Allen, organizations just threw him anywhere. I mean, he probably should have been just a first baseman or maybe a third baseman, which is where he was most productive. But sometimes they had him playing shortstop when he wasn't a natural shortstop. They would have him playing second baseman. They would have him playing in the outfield, and a lot of these things led to injuries, throwing injuries, shoulder injuries, which began to affect him. Broken legs and busted knees and ankles. These things affected him later on in his career. And he missed, I believe, something like 300 something games. But for his career, he hit 292, I believe, with 351 home runs and 1,119 RBI. Now, these numbers don't jump out at you because we're used to guys playing in the home run, the home run laden era of today, where guys have hit 350 something home runs before they're 30 years old. So, we're used to guys with these gaudy numbers, but we have to take certain things into consideration when we consider Dick Allen. We have to take into consideration that he played in an era that some people consider the second dead ball era. Um, it was the lowest offensive era after 1920, the 1970s. It was an era where pitching was more dominant. Guys like Bob Gibson, uh, Nolan Ryan, Steve Carlton, Tom Seaver, Bert Blyhaven, um, you know, uh, pitchers. There's many others. I just can't think off the top of my head. But that was a very dominant era when it pertained to pitching. Um, you only had one guy. I couldn't think of his name in the other video. I was talking about Dave Parker. You only had one guy who hit 50 home runs that entire Matter of fact, between 1965, when Willie Mays hit 52 home runs for the San Francisco Giants, and when Cecil Fielder hit 51 for the Tigers in 1990, only one guy hit 50 home runs, and that was George Foster, 1977, with the Cincinnati Reds. Um, so this was not a offensive slanted era. So his numbers don't jump out at you. Also, Dick Allen played in for organizations that were notoriously pitcher friendly as far as ballparks. In particular, when he played in St. Louis, the old Busch Stadium when he played was not a hitter's haven. Um, Stan Musial, who had power, only, and I'm using air quotes, only hit 475 home runs, despite the fact that he played some 23, 24 seasons. Had he played in maybe someplace like, you know, maybe Yankee Stadium, he probably would have hit 550 home runs or something like that. But anyway, Dick Allen hopefully will be inducted into the Hall of Fame this December. Now, fate was cruel because December 6th of last year, they were supposed to meet the Veterans Committee, and most likely they would have selected Dick Allen, but because of the ongoing pandemic, they decided to delay it until this year. The very next day, on December 7th of last year, Dick Allen died at the age of 78 of terminal cancer. Now they're going to meet again next month, and most likely, most people believe that they're going to vote Dick Allen into the Hall of Fame. Now, the sad thing about it is it will be posthumous. He won't be here. Only his family members will be able to see him get into the Hall. He did live to see the Philadelphia Phillies retire his number back in August of last year. But I want to give you a stat, man, and show you why this guy should be in the Hall of Fame. Between 1964 and 1974, I believe it is, he led the majors in that 10-year period in OPS, which I believe is on base percentage plus slugging percentage. That was higher than anybody else, higher than Hank Aaron, higher than Willie Mays, higher than Willie Stargell, higher than Frank Howard, higher than Harmon Killebrew, higher than um, Frank Robinson, higher than Reggie Jackson, higher than all of these guys. His 534 career slugging percentage in that era that he played in was one of the highest in Major League Baseball for a career. Bill James considers him, the baseball expert, the baseball historian, considers Dick Allen the fourth greatest power hitter in the history of Major League Baseball. The fourth greatest power hitter. And that's considering, I mean, that's very interesting when you consider that because he has him rated ahead of guys like Mark McGwire. He has him rated ahead of guys like Willie Stargell, Frank Howard, Reggie Jackson. So that goes to show you how much, in the context of the era that he played in, how great a power hitter he was. He was considered for a while the strongest man in baseball. All right. Um, I think he was considered the strongest man in baseball between Mickey Mantle, the era of Mickey Mantle, and excuse me, between the era of Frank Howard and Mickey Mantle and Greg Luzinski later on. He was considered the strongest man in baseball. His career batting average is almost 30 points, I think about 30 points higher than Reggie Jackson. So this is a guy that could hit for average, could hit for power, hit some of the longest home runs in that era. I mean, you know, he and Willie Stargell hit some of the longest home runs in that era, along with Dave Kingman. But Dick Allen would hit more home runs over 500 feet than anybody in that era. So yeah, I really think that Dick Allen should get in. Hopefully, he will get in. But tell me what you guys think about this video.